Hey y'all, Uncle Jimmy here. When you speak for yourself, you're forced to think for yourself. And when you think for yourself, the sports world looks different. In order to enjoy this podcast and this show, you need to have the courage to look at the world from alternative points of view and not be offended when you disagree. Speak for yourself isn't your Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram feed. SFY tells you what you need to hear and not what you want to hear. So, welcome aboard, buckle up, and enjoy the ride.
We start right here in L.A. All right, yesterday, Kobe Bryant brought Michael Jordan to public tears. Today, Kobe provoked Tom Brady to write one of the most thoughtful and uplifting pieces of prose ever penned by an athlete. This question may sound crazy, but it crossed my mind this morning. Is Kobe's legacy that he is the most inspiring American athlete since Muhammad Ali? Before we answer that, let's review the remarkable words uttered in remembrance of Bryant in the last 24 hours by the greatest basketball and football players of all time. Jordan spoke at Kobe's memorial service at the Staples Center on 2/24/2020. Take a listen.
Kobe was my dear friend. He was like a little brother. He used to call me, text me, 11:30, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. Talking about post-up moves, footwork, and sometimes the triangle. At first, it was an aggravation. But then it turned into a certain passion. This kid had passion like you would never know. He wanted to be the best basketball player that he could be. And as I got to know him, I wanted to be the best big brother that I could be.
It was amazing to see Michael Jordan that vulnerable, to hear details on the mutual admiration and respect shared between two champions and two competitors. I thought Jordan's speech highlighted the memorial and would be the sole defining moment of the celebration of Kobe's life. But then Tom Brady took to social media and posted a letter headline, "What's really important?" Stick with me, this is worth hearing. I've been deeply affected by the passing of Kobe, Gigi, and the others in that tragic flight weeks ago. Since then, I've witnessed the well-deserved and outpouring of love and support for the families that had so much left to give, and it's helped me reflect and gain perspective. I know that love, peace, and joy will always endure, and in this tragedy, I've learned so much. Why has this touched me in the way that it did? Why has it kept me up at night and brought me so many tears? In Kobe, we were able to witness the man in the arena. For many of us, sports show what we're made of. They define our personalities and emotions. We cannot hide from the good or the bad, from the wins or the losses, the joy and despair, the happiness and the pain. What you see is what it is. We aren't actors. We have found a life stage where we become vulnerable to the world and we are judged based on the outcome of each performance. And we care deeply about what we do. For some, these days are the pinnacle of their life, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's clear to me, for Kobe, that was how he lived his life in every way. In his second chapter, you saw even more. You saw his excitement for life and for achieving in areas only he thought possible. He became more of an entrepreneur, media mogul, father, husband, and mentor, among other roles. And he didn't stop with himself. Kobe didn't care whether you were a man or woman, boy or girl, black or white, rich or poor, ordinary or extraordinary. He wanted to help you become the best you could be. His mere presence had an effect on everybody he was around. He had the energy to recognize in others what they could not recognize in themselves. I think that's why I will miss him most, because we all know the world needs more of that, leadership and positivity. We recognize that he was doing the work that others don't want to do or simply can't do. The world we live in is full of people telling kids and adults, you can't, you shouldn't, you won't, or you never will. The world we live in is teaching everyone to fear, to worry, to shame, or to give up. And that's the opposite of what Kobe stood for. That's what made Kobe a real superhero. He spoke about mentality with such conviction, about the idea that you truly believed in something, you could achieve it. You could overcome the obstacles in your path. And not just that, He walked the walk and did the work. He pushed others to find that same confidence. He was the real-life superhero our world needs. That's what we will all miss. That's why we hurt, because we know that he was always fighting against the norm. He was doing more than his share. Now who is going to do the work that is still here to be done? Who's going to fight and break the norms with love and joy and inspiration? Who's going to discard fear and doubt and hate? Who is going to carry the load and be the superhero that he was? The answer is simple to me: all of us. Decide to make the change in yourself. If there's anything I've learned and been inspired by through this tragic event, it is this: seize the day. That's what Kobe always did, and that's what he wanted for us too. Brady's letter points to what turned me from a Kobe critic during his playing days to a Kobe advocate during his too short retirement. Kobe spent his days after basketball promoting a positive message about the opportunities available to young people if they embrace the right attitude. Brady understands the power of the human mind. He knows the dangers of embracing a mindset of victimhood and a belief that negative forces will stop you from achieving your goals. A Mamba mentality recognizes race but doesn't believe race explains the world. Kobe Bryant was far from perfect, but his approach to life may have been. Kobe might be our most inspirational athlete since Muhammad Ali. Damn, I get emotional just reading Brady's letter, but Marcellus, get us rolling.
Yeah.
Is Kobe the most inspirational athlete since Muhammad Ali?
I would go with a different word. For me, he's the most committed athlete I've ever seen. Not inspirational for me, because I define inspirational as something that's profound, that lights a fire in you personally. And what Kobe represented to me wasn't so profound. It actually was the opposite. It was simplistic in its nature. One thing I respect for him, for his legacy and for his athletic ability, was he didn't suffer from the curse of the gifted. And usually the curse of the gifted skips fundamentals on their climb of success by using only athletic ability as their jet fuel. Not Kobe. Kobe is the guy that actually exemplified what we all saw when we first walked into a high school locker room. All those mantras and discipline, desire, determination. He was a walking display of those mantras. So Mamba mentality is really mantra mentality, because when he came to the NBA, he was a living example of all those tried truths. And that's why they exist over the years, the values. Why are they so valuable? Because you cannot go against them and have ultimate success. And Kobe applied that. So it's just interesting when I think about Kobe, I think about a guy who really just used the simple elements of success, but embodied them fully.
Yeah. That's a long time between Muhammad Ali and today, which is why I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment. I think he's one of the most inspirational. But I think about Magic Johnson. I think about when he contracted HIV and the profound effect that he had in going on with his life, continuing to play, continuing to be a beacon for the world at a time when that was a death sentence. We didn't know anything about it, but it was this foreign homosexual disease, and here was Magic Johnson, who was out front with it. And I think that was inspiring to people in untold ways across the globe. And we didn't have social media then, and we didn't have the end of Magic Johnson. Whereas with Kobe, we have this sudden full stop, unexpected. And we have the ability of a Tom Brady to speak his mind on his platform when he feels it and to spread that to the world. And so for that reason, do I think Kobe is there? Yes, but I don't want to ignore the impact of someone like Magic Johnson at his time.
And I'll agree with you on that from that perspective, because there's been many inspirational players that have come through. But I think what guides us towards Kobe is because we really begin to start to know him later in his years. Excuse me. We knew his mentality when he played as a young man coming in 1996, drafted by the Lakers, wanted to be the best. But we never were able to dig into who he was personality-wise. We got bits and pieces of it. We heard about the stories, But we didn't know. In today's world of social media, you know everybody. You know about Steph, you know about KD, you know about Bron because it's out there. With Kobe, it was still this air of mystery around him outside of the game of basketball. We knew he loved basketball, but what did he love outside of that? We got a glimpse of that. And I think the young people, too, in regards to the ones that are playing basketball, football, baseball now that kind of grew up in Kobe's era, Kobe was there to bridge the gap between Michael Jordan's back end and LeBron coming in. And sprinkled in between there, he was in there with Shaq and Tim Duncan. But he bridged that gap. And I think for any athlete that looks at it and says, I want to be the best at what I can do, he was an inspiration of how to stay focused to do it. Because everybody can't do it. Mm-hmm. I don't care how much we want to say, we've all been there. But to be able to be singularly focused on that goal is hard to do. But I would put him in that category of he's one of the most inspirational since Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, no, it's no. But again, when there's death.
No, why though?
Why is he not?
Yeah.
Well, because I think there are more inspirational players in history since Muhammad Ali. Like Pat Tillman, not as great an athlete as any of these guys that we're speaking of. But when you talk about what his commitment was and what his ultimate sacrifice was, being the son of someone who served in our military in Vietnam, Pat Tillman's the first name that comes to mind as most inspirational. Reggie White comes to mind.
Great.
The Williams sisters come to mind.
Tiger Woods?
Not as great.
It's not really so much about, to me, throwing out names.
Yeah.
Sean Taylor was one of my teammates.
Man.
And I experienced a super influential, misunderstood young man before death. And death, the tragedy of it especially, forces you to look at things that you never wanted to look at. If you have any ounce of sympathy, you look at things that you never looked at. And I think that's what's happening here with Kobe. We have now forced ourselves, because of the sting and just the total disbelief of what took place, we're forced to look at ourselves. And that's where the inspiration comes in, because you want to relate to such greatness, you start to look at what he did that was so great, and you start to apply it to yourself, and then that becomes the product of inspiration.
I'm going to say this. The thing that moves me here is Tom Brady and Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan had a very intimate relationship with Kobe. I'm assuming Brady had a little bit more distant relationship than Michael Jordan with Kobe. And to have the greatest of all times, one stand up in front of a crowd and give an awesome eulogy, break down in tears, talk about being his big brother, and then to have someone from afar who's the greatest in his sport, I couldn't think of a better eulogy than what Tom Brady wrote here. If, as a human being, I hope someone says something like this about me. No, it's probably not going to happen, but my God, this is the way I would want to be remembered. It's incredible. And again, I guess what I think about, I think the Pat Tillman was a great one. I think Magic Johnson's a great one. I don't know if there's some others on this list, but this is perfection to me, how to be remembered, leave a mark on society.
It just shows impact and in the many directions, in many ways that it could go out there and have that effect. For me, it's not in this conversation, but direct impact was Junior Seau, because he was the most talented, had the best heart, but also the humblest mindset, which was something I'd never seen from all the greats that I played with, that could really go out there like the 53rd man mentally, but physically be the best one on the field by far, and still have that big of a heart. So it's funny that everyone is forced to respond when there's a suddenness. And I'm gonna make light of this, but it's real to me. Being a DJ, there's two ways to bring in a song. You could drop it on the one, or you could blend it in. Now, we're talking about a lot of people who had blended lives. Magic Johnson still with us, blended lives. That's great, but you can feel it coming, and there's not this suddenness. But then there's the guys, unfortunately, like Pat Tillman or Kobe, like a DJ would drop it on the one. Next song. And you know what it does? Physiologically, you are forced to react. Right now, emotionally, we're forced to react and think of ourselves, because the next chapter has occurred without notice.
Yeah.
And everyone is now thinking about their own mortality in ways and terms that never before. All I say that for is it sometimes makes you go to a place that you will subside from. And right now, we're all emotional about Kobe. But then there's going to be a moment, unfortunately, the next song will play. And the next song will play. And I want to keep that in context as we display it.
It's a great transition. And you've already answered it to some degree, but answer it a little bit more. Will Kobe's stature continue to grow in death?
One, you got to respect fully where his stature is right now. Like the day before Kobe died. Have you ever seen Kobe Bryant in China? Just Google Kobe Bryant in China.
Crazy.
It's insanity. The level, the magnitude of greatness. So I answer this by saying no, because I'm comparing it to what Kobe is right now and where will it go. This navigation of legacy takes precision, and it takes the fuel of the individual who created it, who we know is more than a basketball player, who has a creative mind, who was now dabbling into investments and to his foundation and to his academy. Who is going to navigate that, not just properly, but precisely like Kobe would? I don't think there's a person out there. I say no.
I do believe it's going to grow because of the way that he handled it at the end, that he inspired others, that he was a proponent for the WNBA, that he was a proponent for Sabrina Ionescu, that he created this legacy of not just of being a girl dad. He went way beyond sport. He went to personal relationships and how do we treat each other and how do we raise our kids. And that, to me, I believe is going to resonate and only grow bigger and stronger. And I have no reason to believe that the Mambacita Foundation or what Vanessa does or just the memory of that, because it's not just that he made this perfect turn and he pivoted into being a parent and a coach and all those things, but that he died with his daughter, that it was as tragic as it was, and that he was headed to a game. I mean, it's a little bit like Roberto Clemente and the way that he died. Like, that resonated forever, and that's why I believe this will too.
I think it'll grow too, just because the legacy of what he started to create will be ushered along by, I think, the players behind him, whether that's baseball, football, basketball, the charities that he started to fund and be a part of will also, I think, embrace his legacy a lot more. So even in death, he will still be able to grow, I think, a lot more. What he's done with women's basketball, somebody's going to pick that up. But they're going to pick it up under the tutelage of what Kobe Bryant started. So it always refers back to Kobe being kind of that beacon of light at that time.
It'll always be called Mamba mentality.
Right. It will always.
Yeah, that's right.
You know?
It's like a storybook, right? Kobe has been the author of an amazing story. He's taken us on an amazing journey. The tragedy of his daughter, Gigi, being associated with him going home, people are going to continue to write on those blank pages. That's the best way I can put it. There's no way with the legacy that Kobe Bryant has left behind, with a lifelong of stories and journeys that Gigi would have took us on if she was still here, that as many great people associated with Kobe Bryant will leave those pages blank.
Look, Rick's explanation is why I go back to I think he's the most inspiring since Muhammad Ali. When you start touching people and their approach to how they parent and what kind of father they are and what kind of athlete they are, he's in so many different lanes. His message, again, and that's why I believe Tom Brady translates. It translates to everybody, white, black, rich, poor, athlete, non-athlete. If you're a parent, if you care about humanity, Tom Brady has articulated why Kobe's legacy is so humongous, because it's more than just sports. And again, no disrespect, Pat Tillman, I get the sacrifice he made for this country, but I don't think it touches on fatherhood and some of these other things that Kobe does. And I do believe like it's going to continue to grow, because Mamba mentality isn't just sports. It's everything. And it applies to every facet of life. Women, men, young people, old people. It's a tragedy. Wow.
Muscle pain? I'm talking stopping your tracks,
I'll never work out again, oh my God, what am I gonna do kind of pain? This is the kind of pain Dr. Jason Wersland was in when he created Theragun, the deep muscle massager that's unlike anything you've ever felt. Theragun isn't a cheap massager that just tickles your muscles. Our handheld percussive device uses a scientifically calibrated combination of speed, depth, and power to release the deepest muscle tension. It's this simple. Whether you want to treat your muscle tension from working out, an injury, or just everyday life, you can use Theragun. Theragun is the preferred muscle recovery device for over 250 professional sports teams and is used by hundreds of thousands of satisfied customers around the world to reduce pain, increase range of motion, and soothe aching muscles. Try Theragun risk-free for 30 days or your money back by going to Theragun.com/cadence. For a limited time, listeners who speak for yourself get a free charging stand with the purchase, a $79 value. That's Theragun.com/cadence. THERAGUN.com/cadence. CADENCE. Whitlock and Wiley, LeVar Arrington is back. We're joined now by former Cowboys cornerback Orlando Scandrick. Time now for a big story. Let's move to Dallas, where there's still been no movement on getting Dak Prescott's new deal done. Yesterday, Cowboys Executive Vice President Stephen Jones said the team wants Dak around long term, but also said that talks broke down between Dak and his agent in September, and they haven't picked back up since.
It just kind of stopped, and we kind of left it where it was. And, I wouldn't say there was anything acrimonious. We just, we felt like we were kind of where we were, and we never really got going again. No, I'm not surprised we don't have it done, once we didn't get it done, right there at the beginning of the season. It certainly doesn't surprise me that it's not done yet right now. I mean, I was surprised that we didn't get it done at the beginning of the season. And obviously, Jerry's thoughts on it. We all thought we were close.
All right, the question here is, they haven't talked since September. Is this a bad sign for Dak Prescott?
No. I'm going to humbly personalize this story. I think it's a good sign. We all know nothing gets done without a deadline. And I was a free agent one time, and it took me 12 hours to sign the richest deal in Chargers history. 12 hours. Didn't take that damn long because they knew what they wanted. I knew what I wanted. We kind of got there. This situation I love and respect is because they started at a certain place. Dak said, that's not where I am. Call me when you get where I am. Now I'm going to fast from all the mundane, monotonous details. Oh, they went up 5,000. They went up 100,000. I don't want to hear that. And you know why I think it worked? Dak had a career year. He said, we talk in September before the season. After that, I'll talk to you after. We're going to handle this appropriately. So Dak Prescott had the right mindset. Don't call me unless you're ready to do something.
I think it's fantastic. I think he's in a great position.
They haven't talked since September.
That's fine. The price of doing business is still the price of doing business. I think he's in a great place. I think if he takes the deal that they had on the table, which was $33 million a year, you add that on, you say that's a 5-year deal at $33 million a year, you add that $2 million on to that deal, and now it's a 6-year deal. You're talking totally different numbers. Now you come anew in free agency. He's facing 2 franchise tags, which will be about $77 million, 76.5. So at this point, now you're looking at it as saying, if that deal don't have $77.5 million guaranteed over those 2 years and don't average that, that's where we're starting. That's my floor now.
Mm-hmm. House money.
I think the only problem with that is it's still being based off of how the ownership values him. So if you're paying attention, the storyline has never given us any reason or any cause to think that they're going to go above and beyond what they've already offered.
They don't really have a choice. The franchise tag is above and beyond what they already offered.
They have a choice.
They can move on. That's fine.
They can move on from them. And what he has to understand is, and again, could it work out for him playing that game? It could work out for him. And you hope that it works out for the player in this scenario. But that betting on yourself and leaning into, I'm going to wait for him to call me when it's the price of doing business. If it doesn't work out that way, say, for instance, they let him go. Mm-hmm. Because it wouldn't cost that much to just let him go and
he's instantly the number 1 free agent on the
and
market.
It's quote robust. There's a robust marketplace for Dak
quarterbacks. Look what Kirk Cousins got.
He's not Kirk Cousins.
He's better than Kirk Cousins.
Paid more than Kirk Cousins. You want to bet that? Nobody wants to bet that.
He might, but he's not. He's not If he has not
$35 million.
proven
He'll
to
be the
cra-
richest quarterback in NFL history.
No.
way.
The
Let
richest,
me- let me-
the richest. I'm willing to say that he's going to get more than $35 million. His new deal. His new deal will be $35 million a year.
All it takes is one crazy owner. I just don't think Jerry Jones is that crazy owner. And to me, when you start talking about you having talks since September, to me, and y'all been married, to me it's like a husband and a wife, they start sleeping in other rooms because they mad at each other. And then the thing goes on so long, and a smart husband be like, well, damn, she ain't came back in here. What is she up to?
But
Or what is he up to?
The difference between
And I'm telling you, the Cowboys are up to something. New head coach, and this quarterback going 8-8 in a alleged career year, you start looking around and be like, well, damn, maybe Tom Brady or somebody, or draft somebody, anything's a possibility. The longer this goes without them talking, I just think there's, again, I said it on Cowherd at the end of the show, 10% chance Dak's not their starting quarterback.
No, it sounds good. It all sounds good, and we want to say, yeah, they don't talk and like a husband and a wife, but you got to take emotion out of all of this. When you talk about $150 million, there is no emotion in this.
Right.
This is straight business.
And you sound like a single man because when you single, you talk about everything that happens. Yeah. When you married, you get strategic. You're like, look, we're going to talk about this, and then we're going to talk about this. Now, when we have movement, we'll talk fully about this.
Absolutely.
But this is the mature way. Like, why are we bothering each other in October, November, and we ain't moving? They always say that talk robs walk. If you see some dudes that's talking woofing, they ain't about to fight. The fighter is the one who hits them because when you in my face, dog, when we over here talking so much, we ain't walking. I want to wait till we doing some walking.
But what also makes this
I
thing
got into
special.
a few fights with some talkers, and they fought pretty well.
Oh, you took some L's? I got to
I just
challenge
had to
that.
put that on record. There was a talker.
They beat you with the hands and the tongue?
And the tongue. Yeah.
But the bottom line in this whole situation is the franchise tag deadline is way ahead of free agency.
Got it.
So
He
if you
can't
chose not to
lose.
franchise tag him,
Yeah.
you better know that Tom Brady is coming. Or you're going to be looking at a 2-14 season.
But we
It
got
could be another quarterback.
Don't complicate
Might
it
not
first.
just be Tom Brady.
Teddy Bridgewater?
Don't complicate
it. Could be anybody.
No
It
way.
is simple.
It's possible.
Dak cannot lose. He's looking at it in the monetary value scope. He could get franchised. He's made $4 million on the field in his career. He gets franchised. He's making 33. He won. He gets another franchise year. He's up to 75. He can't lose, guys.
Okay, the
even if
only way
gets-
he could lose
If he
is if
what?
he really, really values being a Cowboy and the Cowboys move on from him. That's a loss.
But they say they value him, and he's not going anywhere.
Long
also.
term, they say, but again, at what price? And I'm just telling you, eventually what married people do, they turn very business oriented as well. They start putting pen to pad. Now, if I leave, how much is this going to cost me?
Yeah.
I got child support, blah, blah, blah. And she's over there plotting. How's it going to work?
But
for us
also, she also saying that, that salary cap going to be, you're going to make more money next year so you can afford to pay me more. That's how child support work.
It does.
But I'm just telling you.
They do come back.
Jerry Jones is the judge and jury on this, and they seem pretty resolved. They're not going to overpay. And, you coming there like Todd France, he getting more than $35 million.
But I've negotiated with Jerry Jones before.
I got you.
Same here.
And I know
He pays.
He pays.
I got
He
paid.
values his players. Jerry Jones, that's like ran like a family-owned business over there. They're looking at him, and the last thing Jerry wants to see is what he's seen in DeMarcus Ware.
And listen to this, Whitlock. He's not worth $33 million according to you. But guess what, Jerry? You slow play this and 2 franchise tag him. He getting more than $33 million. It's just he can't lose. Dak is sitting there like, play it. That's why I don't need to talk to y'all. Y'all figure your situation out because I already know I'm going to win.
They're way too invested in him.
Yeah.
Jerry does not want to see a player walk out of that building and have success somewhere else.
Or he could fail. Nick Foles went and failed someplace else. Sometimes
Nick
you
Foles
can be
didn't
smart.
Nick Foles didn't get no franchise tag.
I
Compare him to
understand
Nick
that,
Foles.
but I'm just saying you could.
Comparing apples to oranges now.
Who do you think Dak is? Who do you think Dak is?
I think that Dak is a winner. And I think he's getting better.
No. Give me a
I think
comparison.
Nick
Give me a
Foles
comparison.
is a spot starter.
Give me a comparison.
Wow.
Who is Dak? Is he
I'm not
Warren
gonna
Moon?
compare-
Is he
no,
Tom
come
Brady?
on now you're asking me to do something I can't do.
Well, okay.
I can't tell you
Jerry
he is
can
a
do
winner.
it, and he can say, "Look, he's 8-8 this year," and
Let me go then.
Whitlock and Wiley, LeVar Arrington, and Orlando Scandrick are back. Let's move to the NFL Combine, where Joe Burrow is drawing a lot of attention, and not just for his small hands.
Itty bitty hands.
The Heisman winner said he wouldn't be throwing at the Combine and the QB was very direct when asked if he would play for the Bengals if they drafted him first overall.
I'm not going to not play. I'm a ball player. Whoever picks me, I'm going to go show up. You know, the only thing that I've said is I just didn't want to be presumptuous about the pick, and so that's why I've been non-committal, because I don't know what's going to happen. You know, they might not pick me. They might fall in love with someone else. So you guys kind of took that narrative and ran with it, but there's never been anything like that from my end.
All right. I think Burrow really wants to play for the Bengals.
Let me answer it like the millennials, like my daughter would. He really wants to play for the Bengals, but he doesn't really want to play for the Bengals. And there's a big difference I'm learning from these kids. The more real he's on it, the more real it is, right? He really wants to play in the NFL. He really wants to be the number one pick, but he doesn't really want it to be Cincinnati. So he's too confident, too articulate to tap dance like that. We've seen it, and he's learning a harsh lesson in being an NFL-savvy veteran at that podium. He's starting to learn that lesson fast, like make declarations even if they're going to rub some people the wrong way. Because I think before, he was trying to play that negotiation out. I have leverage. What prospect has ever said leverage in the prospect of going to the draft and to the combines? I've never heard leverage until there's a contract and there's negotiations. But when you're trying to audition, you're talking leverage. That let me know that he doesn't deep down want to go there, but he's going to be there.
I used leverage in my conversations leading up to the draft.
Oh, did you?
But it was a different day and age back then. I told Cleveland, it's the black hole. I'll never show up here without quarterback money.
That's why I'm saying he didn't say that, but then he says, I'm using leverage.
But I like,
say what you say.
I like his approach to this, though. I really do. I like how he kept it kind of open-ended and stayed in a humble manner about it. And, you know, look, no one wants to play for a losing team. Nobody wants to take and go to a losing team, especially with a track record of not really being able to win. You waste your greatest years being able to play on trying to figure out how to win.
I like that challenge, though.
Right?
I'd rather go somewhere and light the torch than carry the torch. Me, personally. I'd rather go somewhere that, I'm going to make impact. I like that challenge.
When I chose the college I went to, I wanted to go and win a national title.
How'd that go for you?
Yeah, we came close.
How'd that go,
It was
though?
ranked one. I mean,
Thank you.
Only one team can win it.
Well, then what's your point?
So you got a chance.
So you can go somewhere else and make that team that situation. Kansas City hasn't won in 50 years now. They won in Super Bowl.
You're not looking at it from a realistic perspective. A realistic perspective is most teams in college will not be able to compete for a national title.
We're off track.
I said pros.
The point is, I don't look at Cincinnati's going to be able to do it either.
Burrow really wants to play for the Bengals.
Penn State.
I think he really wants to play for the Bengals from what he's saying because he's close to home, but he's also leaving it open-ended and saying, but I wouldn't be mad if I played for somebody else. But, I mean, if you just read his quotes, that's a 2-hour drive home. I can go see my family. He can go see all his friends. He's a hometown hero. Who don't want to be a hometown hero? Hey. I just heard, we hear all this thing about Kobe and, rest in peace, bless his soul, and just the impact that he made on Los Angeles, and he's not even from here. If Joe Burrow comes and just does a tenth of what Kobe Bryant did or a tenth of what anybody else, you looking at him possibly being top Bengals of all time.
Those two letters
number in the rafters.
A lot of people in.
Joe Burrow wants to be the number one pick in the draft. That's his goal.
That's what he wants.
He wants to be the number one pick in the draft. He doesn't want to be a Cincinnati Bengal. I think his comments today were perfect for perhaps creating a scenario where he can get out of being in Cincinnati. If he comes out right now and says, I want out of here, it lowers his trade value.
Yes, it does.
If he seems...
Trade value? When the last time y'all seen a quarterback on a rookie deal traded, not named Jimmy Garoppolo, that was a backup?
I'm just saying,
he's not even going to make it to the team.
Right. They traded... Again, in order for the Bengals to have the most leverage and value, get the most value, if they do decide to trade him, look, he could be sitting... The Bengals may not be totally in love with Joe Burrow.
He said that.
They said you're a betting man.
He said that.
What's that?
They said you're a betting man.
Yeah, no, but I'm not going to make a bet on this. He's likely going to go to the Bengals. They got the number one pick. It's hard to make trades and all that. But does he want to play for the Bengals? No. I think he wants to go to Carolina and play for his passing game coordinator at LSU, Joe Brady.
What pick is that?
I think they got the 6th or 7th. They would have to trade up for him.
And maybe they'll try, but I think that's the point that you're making. Yeah. If everybody plays their role the way they're supposed to play their role, then you may have an opportunity to get a suitor that would actually make the move to get to that number 1 pick. If he's saying, I don't want to play in Cincinnati right now, then now you're setting the stage where Cincinnati's like, okay, this is what we want. This is what I want. This is what I want. Right. If you want Joe Burrow so bad, this is what you're going to give me. But if he plays the game the way he's supposed to, which made it a great interview, then now Cincinnati is forced to look at it from, we don't know if he wants to be here.
But it's not just for Cincinnati. It's forcing other teams. Look, if they felt like the guy wanted out of there, you're going to offer Cincinnati less, and Cincinnati's less likely to trade the pick.
That's the other side of it.
He's protecting his value, his trade value, by saying what he said today. Again, I do agree with him.
But why are we sitting up here acting like the Carolina Panthers are in a better position?
He's got his passing game
in a better position than
the college coach he just went. They just hired the Carolina Panthers.
I didn't.
Look, I can tell you why. Mike Brown's the cheapest owner in all of professional sports.
It's a great thing that number 1 contract is
David
locked in.
Tepper is the richest man in the NFL. Mike Brown has never hired a general manager. They haven't won a playoff game since 1991.
But we talked about their winning percentage.
Ever since he took over as general manager and team owner, Mike Brown, they haven't won a playoff game since. The Bengals have been a black hole of football, and I know Marvin Lewis elevated them, and they had some success. Marvin Lewis is gone. What do? They turn back.
Yeah, but they also had the 6th most wins in the AFC in the last decade. Let's not
under Marvin Lewis.
I lose value in a prospect that doesn't want this challenge. So if I'm Cincinnati internally, I'm looking at Joe Burrow less right now because I'm like, it doesn't sound like he fully embraces this challenge. Now, not everybody wants to raise their hand because they have leverage and don't want that challenge. But me, I understand picking your college. Picking your pro team makes me always pause. Even though it's worked out before, I still pause at somebody and still drafting them when I know that they had some temper expectations in terms of, do I really want this?
Jim Jackson and Rick Bucher are back with us. Time now for Darnell's question of the day. All right, take it away, homeboy.
Yes, sir. Let's move to the Staples Center, where thousands of people paid their respects at Kobe and Gianna Bryant's memorial yesterday. The ceremony lasted about 2.5 hours, and a number of his close friends and fellow athletes spoke, sharing memories of Kobe and Gianna. But one unusual thing about the service was that, except for a brief mention by Shaq, Kobe's parents didn't receive much acknowledgement. I wanted to ask you guys, what did you think about that?
I thought it was sad, a little bit disconcerting. I think that those feuds have to end in death, and I think it speaks to money and what it can do to a family if things aren't handled well.
Say it. I echo that. Let me add that them not being a part of that ceremony on any level, grand level, outside of Shaquille O'Neal mentioning it, when Shaquille O'Neal also was seen hugging Joe Bryant before the ceremony, without any other mention of them, is not by coincidence. It's all intentional. Unfortunately, lost my mother and a few other family members and had to be a part of the committee that is preparing the goodbye and the funeral. Every single element is taken care of in line items and assigned. So for that to be the situation, only two things come to mind. Either one, Vanessa or whoever was a part of that committee, their purpose was to live out what Kobe was feeling at the time of his death. Can't blame her then. Or this is a situation where it was trying to repair itself and it needed to be fully repaired in death because we're walking around all dying. And I think that the hard reset needs to be that you're gone. The building blocks of who Kobe was, I don't care who your wife is, who your kids are, is mama and daddy. And no matter what distance you guys are at, don't forget how all of this was able to grow from that base.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but we can back up a little bit just because of what's happened and transpired between his mother, father, and Kobe and what happened and the disconnect. I was at the game when he scored. It's the last game of 60 points. After the game, he acknowledged the crowd, acknowledged everybody. Parents weren't there. Did not acknowledge, okay? His jersey retirement, it was the same situation. It was Vanessa's, family, his kids, but not his family. So this is not something that hasn't been done or seen. if you track it back, and the unfortunate situation is we don't know the ins and outs of why they couldn't reconcile, but through death, there's a certain closure, but then there's a certain pit that's still open because you weren't able to reconcile whatever those issues were during the time when somebody was alive. So I was there yesterday and I saw his parents there, and I was kind of surprised actually because of what has transpired in the past.
What I appreciated about the entire ceremony was that it was real and it was authentic. And everyone who spoke had a specific connection to Gianna and Kobe. And the truth is that his parents made him choose between them and Vanessa. And he made that choice. And he built a life around that choice. LeBron James didn't speak. Phil Jackson didn't speak. Gino Auriemma spoke. Now, there are certain things about those relationships that aren't necessarily what are as advertised now, not as genuine maybe as they are portrayed. So that's what I appreciated, that he and Vanessa stuck to their guns. This is the way it was when he went. We're not going to change it in hindsight just for appearance's sake.
Yeah, I wouldn't, and agree with what you're saying, I wouldn't have maybe had them speak. But I just think in pictures, you're using the big screen. That part of Kobe's life from age 0 to age 18, his dad was a big part of that. And I'm sure there was a way to recognize through photos of that his dad was part of that
But who chose the photos?
Yes.
Who put that you know what I mean? And that is the part that Rick is talking about in regards to, I think, where they wanted the family, and I hate to try to speak for them, but it was viewed as that's what it was. It's always been this way for the last, 10 years, 15 years.
Yeah.
The family hasn't really been a part of it since he had to make that choice if that was given to him. So we're going to keep it status quo in that regard, because all the stuff was there that was being shown wasn't that family.
Right.
It was the other family.
And honestly, it wasn't even Kobe's Laker family. If you look at all of the photos in the 24-page booklet that they gave out to everybody who went to the memorial, it's all pictures of either Kobe in a Lakers uniform, or Kobe with Vanessa or his daughters. Some combination of that. You don't see anybody else featured in those photos, and the photos that they were showing up on the screen during the memorial was only them. It didn't expand to a larger universe than that.
And look, I'm not getting into a taste conversation about how they should have had his memorial, but a matter of fact conversation. Like, there were stages and phases of Kobe's development and growth that I think you're supposed to celebrate all of it. You just don't wait till the parade. Who was there building the floats? Mama, daddy, before everybody jumped on the Kobe parade. So my thing is, I've noticed this in weddings, and we don't talk enough about it in funerals. Weddings have a honeymoon. Funerals have a fantasy phase where we recreate reality. And I've been there before when I've seen somebody in the casket. I'm like, that ain't him. Who y'all eulogizing ain't him.
Right.
Why y'all, it's glowing. And look, all I'm saying, if you're gonna be authentic, that goes from beginning to end, because we're celebrating the ending, which makes us think about the beginning and all of his life. Why didn't we go so far distant?
Whitlock and Wiley, LeVar Arrington, and Rick Bucher are back. Time for the most fair discussion of the day. Let's return to Deontay Wilder, who says he does want a third fight with Tyson Fury after taking a 7-round beating and losing his title in Las Vegas Saturday night. Wilder had a lot of excuses for the loss, taking issue with his trainer's decision to throw in the towel and putting even more blame on the outrageous costume he wore for his walk-in to the ring, saying, quote, "The simple fact is that my uniform was way too heavy for me. I didn't have no legs from the beginning of the fight, but I'm a warrior, and people know that I'm a warrior. A lot of people were telling me it looked like something was wrong with you. Something was, but when you're in the ring, you have to bluff a lot of things. I tried my best to do so. I knew I didn't have the legs because of my uniform." Is Wilder making a fool of himself with the costume and cornerman excuses?
You combine those two, yes. But if you isolate those two, no. And here's my description. Pre-game, we always talk about it, especially in a bigger moment, Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes had to force himself to be subdued. Why? Get too amped before the pre-game, and I throw myself off. Tom Brady's never thrown a first quarter touchdown in any Super Bowl. Mentally, you're off. Anxiety at its highest. Now you add, forget mental anxiety, because you can control that. Physical 40 pounds of weight, which is 360 atmospheric pounds of pressure on your body. If you're walking around with 40 pounds on you, full of that anxiety, full of that hype, and you go out there and fight, there will be a physical response and it will be adverse. Now, let's talk about I've never lost. I've never lost, Whitlock. Every fight, never lost. Down and out. Luis Ortiz, losing every round. Never lost because I hit him with this. I've been down and out before. Let's bring it back to my sport. New England Patriots, Super Bowl, down 28-3. If there was a corner man in football, who would throw in the towel in? Probably most people. But this guy's like, I've never been out. Down and out, looking like it, but never out. You're going to be the reason I lose my first fight ever? Oh, I feel him. Isolated both of those variables. He has a good case, and he doesn't look foolish.
No, the combination for me is the problem. If he was saying that I was just tired, if it was, I was just tired and that's the only reason I lost this fight, which is what he's saying. He's suggesting that he didn't get tagged and get tagged. You said 7-round beating. It wasn't 7-round losing. It was 7-round beating. He's suggesting that Fury did not hit him. The concern from the corner was he's not going to get hit because his legs are tired. He's going to continue to get hit the way he's been hit. I'm sorry, but if you trust your corner to stay with you through all those fights, and they let you live and continue on, and then they look at this one and say, it's a bad bet based on who you're up against and based on how this has gone to this point, I can't look at them and say, you cost me. Like, do any of you think that if he had stayed in that fight, that he had stayed around, that he was possibly going to win that fight?
1% chance.
I don't think he's making a fool of himself, but it sounds foolish, is what I'll say. And listen, in terms of what you're going to wear for your uniform leading up to the fight, you should be in such great condition, because unlike football, you get a week to prepare for a game. If it's preseason, you're preparing for a couple months, but you're still using training camp to get yourself ready to go. You get used to the shoulder pads, the helmet, and everything else. You are preparing for one singular moment. And that's what your, 9-week training session? 9 weeks of training. If you have no legs based off of carrying that uniform to the ring, I would first question how good a condition are you in. That's first and foremost. Secondly, in terms of throwing in the towel, the 6th and 7th round, if you're his trainer, the 6th and 7th round, he threw a total of total punches, 6 punches. That includes 2 jabs and 4 power punches. He landed 6. That's a total of 32 shots that he put out there.
Whoa. How many punches did he throw? You said he threw 6 and he
in round 6 and 7 of that fight, because I thought that his trainer should
tell the stat.
Okay, the stat, he threw 2 jabs in round 6 and 7 and 4 power punches that landed. So total, he threw 32 over those 2.
Gotcha.
Did y'all get that?
Yeah, we got it. He threw 32 punches, landed 6.
He only landed 6 and threw 32 punches in 2 rounds.
Thank you for repeating.
Yeah, all right, no problem.
And you were geared up for that one moment. What kind of shape are you in?
But I'm not out of shape. I still delivered the point.
He's good stats.
Thank you.
He's making himself a meme, a joke. If you look all over social media, people are mocking the hell out of him. You take that type of ass whooping, just shut up. Even if you got excuses, even if they're legitimate excuses, don't make them. Do your little deal, trigger your rematch, and give your explanation in the ring the next time. You chose to put on the costume.
You did.
You chose to wrap yourself in Black history, and I'm gonna have this race deal going into. that created part of the anxiety. It's just like you said. You talk about the stakes were raised in the arena. The stakes were raised in the ring, and he raised them on himself. He built up this mountain and fell off the top of that mountain.
Icarus.
And the other thing, if his legs were tired, I don't think it's the costume. I think it's what other boxers have said. He just fought in November. He turned around and fought too soon. He needed 2 or 3 more months in between fights. That's why his legs might be tired. But when you get beat up like that, don't nobody want to hear no excuses, even if they're legitimate.
I don't care what they want to hear. They're going to hear it. You know why? I'm not caving to the social media meme bullies. Who the hell are they? And that's all they do. And if they do it, I have to now stay silent and quiet with my reasons.
What about the respect from your peers?
How about this?
His peers don't want to hear this.
First of all, I don't give a damn about your respect either. Initially, in priority, it's about how I feel. Listen, he was accountable. He said the best man won that night. If you read the whole article, he also said, I credit Fury, but I also take responsibility for being the guy who wore this irresponsibly. Now, with that said, in our sport of football, how many times I've been in the locker room? How many times you been in the locker room? Dude over there complaining about his thigh pads that weighs 0.3 ounces because he can't run as fast. How many times we see the dude get on the field and it's cold outside, all of a sudden he can't play as well? Let's not act like conditions, mental or physical, don't have a play in your game.
There's one thing, though, to complain about the conditions, and another one to blame the result on those conditions. And that's the issue that I have here. He's saying he lost. Yeah, he mentioned that Fury won, but he's saying, boy, it would have been a different outcome if not for this or this. It's a little bit like the player who says, you know what, I played well, the coach game plan wasn't good.
I'm going to give you another one. Y'all wrong. They fought 19 rounds altogether.
Don't give me this, I know this.
19 rounds. And other than landing 2 punches in the first fight.
He's lost 17 of them.
Yeah, and so...
I know.
Luis
Ortiz, he lost every one, too.
I get it, but after 19 rounds, no excuses, take your beating, trigger your rematch, show up in September, October, November, fight your fight.
Styles make fights. Let's be real. He's not going to win on points. He's not a better boxer. He wins off of this. That detonation can turn 17-2 around for another.
Don't tell me, show me.
Tyson Fury could have hurt him bad, and he didn't finish him off.
He did hurt him bad. LeVar Arrington and Orlando Scandrick are back. Let's move to Minnesota, where apparently things are getting a little testy between the Vikings' 2-star wide receivers after numerous reports that Stephon Diggs was unhappy during the season. Now former Vikings linebacker Chad Greenway says Diggs feels like he's taking a back seat to Adam Thielen and, quote, that does not sit well with Diggs. All right, big deal, little deal, or no deal?
I think this is a little deal. Personalize this. I was jealous of anybody that was outshining me on my team, on the other team, whatever it may be, because you always want to be at your best, and that your best is good enough to dictate terms and dictate wins and dictate stats. And when that's not the situation, you feel a certain type of way. As long as your jealousy is not meeting with sabotage, I never want to get in your way, never want to stop you from being great. I just want to be greater. And this is a situation, I've been in the meeting room before with some of the greats. You know Bruce Smith and all them guys. Every time the coach would say, yeah, we need to win, and he locked eyes with Bruce, I sat there and said, I'm over here. Every time coach would give him the opportunities I wouldn't get because he deserved them, I felt a certain type of way. As long as there's no sabotage, little deal.
Little deal. The realism of the situation is Adam Thielen's a Minnesota kid, small school. He's overachieving. He's always going to be a fan favorite just look at the semantics of the situation. Minnesota kid, he's superseded all of his, what's the word I'm looking for?
Limitations,
expectations. But at the end of the day, Stephon Diggs is upset because he wants to be a true number one receiver. He went from 169 targets to 94 targets. He went from 102 catches to 63 catches. But the underliner in this is he had a career season in yards. So he's sitting back and saying, if I just got those 149 targets again, how many yards would I have really had?
I like that.
Going.
Look, little deal because it's in the middle, but it has the potential to be a no deal or a very big deal based off of what O just said. And listen, you're talking about friendly inter-team rivalries. Yeah. Those things exist, right? You want to be the best guy at your position. You do.
Hell yeah.
And that plays a part in all of this. And listen, both of these guys, the reason why I say it's a little deal, they got to figure it out because both of them have 5 years. Well, Okay, so Diggs has 4 years remaining and Thielen has 5 years, and their numbers are very comparable. Dead cap space in 2020, it's both around 9 million. Thielen is 8.2, while Diggs is at 9. Their numbers are very comparable. So you're valuing these guys pretty much the same. So they got to play and figure it out.
I'm sure Stephon Diggs thinks he's better. Stephon Diggs has to remember, was it a playoff game this year or was it
a playoff game
where they're winning and he's complaining.
He's on the sideline.
He's complaining. So that's why I go big deal. This dude can be a bit emotional, and I think this dude would like to go play someplace else where he can clearly be the number one receiver. And I blame him, but I halfway don't. When you go look across, if you're a wide receiver in the NFL and you look at what Michael Thomas did this past year and what he's doing with Drew Brees early in his career, you do want to be a number one receiver.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Look, this is a parallel to AB and Juju for me. Now, let me give you why.
Adam Thielen's better than Juju.
I ain't talking about their talent. I'm talking about the dynamic of look, I want my shine, but how's this shine going to be given? So the quarterback comes into play. You got to temper these expectations because what happened with AB and Juju was AB was like, I'm clearly better than you, Juju. Juju probably would have said, duh. However, I got some numbers that saying I'm good too. Give me my respect. So it's about what the quarterback does to diffuse the situation, and also it's about how the receivers are taking it. I'm not talking talent. I'm talking about dynamic. This could be a big deal if they don't get their hands around it, because look what happened to AB and Juju.
I just changed my mind. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal now.
Come on, man.
I mean, now that I'm sitting here listening to it, it is the big deal because it has all of the ingredients for a recipe of disaster.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal.
Now Kirk Cousins got to be like,
deal.
oh, man, he got the ball last.
Little deal.
Yeah.
Little deal. They just need to get some stability in offensive coordinator. It's going to be 4 years, 4 different coordinators.
Well.
Different. I mean, that plays a lot in it. And Zimmer has his hand in the offense on they want to run the ball. So
but when
if
you
it's
get
only
crack,
so many,
when you get a crack in glass, you know what happens?
something got to give.
That thing starts to slowly
It's a little deal for me between Adam and between Steph. I think these guys are friends.
Well, you got to throw the third element in there, the quarterback.
Oh.
And so you throw the third element in there.
That's
who does he have the best rapport with?
And then
Juju start being buddy with him, and then AB start losing. AB like, I'm way better. And there's one more element. Can we keep it fearless?
Let's go, Dalvin.
When you see Adam Thielen in the same meeting room as you and you Stephon Diggs with those talents, you question him. And you shouldn't. Don't get fooled by the pay job. But when it starts to materialize and he's beating you, you start to feel a certain type of way. So he got a lot to check. This is going to be a big deal.
Uncle Jimmy's here to help us talk about our approval ratings for Kobe Bryant.
You know?
But first, who's your big dummy of the day?
You? Person who stood up here and said that married couples shouldn't sleep in 2 separate rooms together because it's a problem.
Yeah, right.
That sounds like some good night. That sounds like some good sleeping to me. I don't know what you coming from.
Restful night.
All right, look, we're going to talk about Kobe Bryant. No jokes from Uncle Jimmy. All right, Kobe's life was celebrated in a massive memorial yesterday at Staples Center. A number of the athletes, from Michael Jordan to Diana Taurasi, shared their memories in a very moving ceremony. But LeBron James didn't speak and was asked today if he was in attendance.
Did you attend the ceremony? Like I said, man, it was just, I respect your question, for sure. Very emotional day, very tough day for myself, for my family, for everyone involved. The one thing I can come out of saying how strong and how bold and how powerful Vanessa is. To stand up there the way she did, to give the speech the way she gave that speech. I commend her. My heart is with their family still, with his 3 daughters that's still here, with his wife, with his mom and dad, and his sister. It was just a very difficult day, obviously celebration, but it's a difficult day for all of us. So I appreciate it. Just if we can move on to tonight, that'd be great.
All right, Marcellus, is it weird that LeBron won't confirm he was in attendance for Kobe's memorial?
Yeah, it is. No problem if he wasn't in attendance. I understand some people don't want that moment of finality. If I had it to do over again when my mother passed, I would be on the fence, if not leaning, I shouldn't have done that. It was just too much. But I do have a problem he won't confirm it. I think you're going to bring more attention to this situation than necessary, and you're doing yourself no favors.
I'm not going to second guess him at all in this moment because we all have had these moments, but I've certainly been exactly where LeBron is. I was very close to Derek Thomas in Kansas City, and when he died, it shook me to my core.
Yeah.
Not just out of just sadness for all the people whose lives were just dramatically changed, and I knew them from his mother to his kids, to his friends, to the organization, the fan base. That shook me, but then being the same age as Derek, it was the first time where I was like, oh my God, it can be over for me at any moment.
Yeah.
And I think LeBron is going through that right now. I did not attend Derek Thomas's funeral. I couldn't handle it. I'm not good with funerals.
Yeah.
I haven't taught. This is probably the first time a lot of people in Kansas City even heard me mention that I wasn't there. I had a few friends that went that knew, but LeBron is shook right now, and I think authentically shook. And
if asked, were you at Derek Thomas's funeral, would that be your response?
Probably not, but when you're shook,
yeah, I get it.
You don't respond in the best way. And I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because I've been this kind of shook. And so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Uncle Jimmy, you have any thoughts?
I think for me, it was in June 15th of 2018. And that's when I had two officers, Patrick Rohr and Teresa King, killed in the line of duty while transporting an inmate. And that loss was so senseless to me that I did not attend that service because it made no sense to me. And when you're young like that and you have a loss like that, it's hard for young people to make a decision to know what to do, what not to do. So LeBron James gets a pass for me right now. If he was there and he was seen, they're gonna say he tried to steal the limelight. If he wasn't there, then he was there because he was mad because he didn't get a chance to speak. Sometimes, man, things just don't make sense, and we got to deal with them on our own way. And that's how I feel about LeBron James right now and this whole thing and everybody, man. We got to just deal with it. Ain't nobody been here before, man. This is uncharted waters with this loss of Kobe, man. So don't nobody know how to act. And it affects everybody all the way across the globe. So in my opinion, LeBron gets a pass. Everybody deals with it differently, man.
Yeah, I think a sports icon of his magnitude dying at 41 with his daughter when this connection he had with female athletes. I do agree with, we're in uncharted waters. LeBron James, a relatively young father with kids. Again, I think he shook. I probably should have confirmed or denied, but again, I can't second guess it or question. I'm not going to go off into elaborate speculation that is prominent over social media. Is he upset he wasn't speaking? None of that matters to me because, again, I wasn't remotely close to Kobe, but I'm shook. This was a guy doing so much good. And when I look at a Tom Brady and what he wrote today, I don't think he was that close to Kobe, but he shook. Yeah. He's talking about all the tears he shed. LeBron, Laker, all the pressure of trying to win a championship this year, to honor Kobe, LeBron shook. I'm going to give him a pass.
Yeah, like my grandmother used to say, you can't make sense out of nonsense. And in times when you're that shook, as you say, you just can't make sense of it. Everyone is feeling the impact because we all shared some of Kobe's legacy, whether it's just as a fan or more intimately. But LeBron, wearing the same uniform as a Laker, being an all-time great like him, having family first like he does in his personal life. Wherever you are, wherever I am, he's that much closer and intimate to it. I get it.
Uncle Jimmy, you got any final thoughts before I get to my approval rating?
Hey, man, we talk about Kobe's work that he did on the court. Man, I could be mistaken, but I think Kobe might have mastered the art of fatherhood. And that says a whole lot about what that man was able to do. I'm far more impressed by his actions as a father than I was anything he ever did on the court.
All right, I think our approval ratings are pretty obvious here. Kobe is a GOAT, perfect score for me. This is not the time to second-guess Kobe Bryant. it's the time to celebrate him, and I'm so appreciative of Michael Jordan and Tom Brady and the way they've celebrated.
Oh, yeah. It was great. Yeah, GOAT status and the send-off, appropriate, the magnitude, the intimate words, all necessary.
All right, the internet agrees with us. 81% basically GOAT status.